Welcome to the Stoned Heen View, a podcast series which interviews a range of sport club representatives and leading professional sport club personnel during the COVID-19 shutdown. We find out what these people are doing during the current health crisis with some of our most popular sports seasons postponed. I'm Mark Heenan, and today I'm actually going to speak to our special guest interstate. He is actually originally from the state of Victoria. He moved to Sydney last year and New South Wales during the COVID-19 period in 2020. He moved up there for work, but he also plays football, and he's representing the North Shore Bombers in the AFL Sydney Premier Division, and he's also the former Ocean Grove Senior Football Club captain. His name is Harry Walker, and Harry Walker's been good enough to join us. How are you, Harry?
Yeah, good, thanks, Hano. Yeah, cheers, thanks for having me.
Mate, it's good to get you back. I'll get you on the podcast, and I get the little Instagram feed, and I see that you've been, circling and watching a little bit. You're looking fit up there, and I guess it's a great pleasure to have you on. It was interesting, the role that I used to have. I used to work with I have worked with a paper in Ocean Grove, and one of the last stories I did was on you and how you took over the captaincy of Ocean Grove, and it's amazing what's changed in 1 year since March last year, how you went from being ordained as the captain for that year in 2020. There was no season. You made that call to move up to New South Wales and obviously look for work and go from that point of view and obviously get to play some football. And we'll talk about your North Shore Bomber playing days in a sec, but talk us through that decision, because 1 year ago you had a captaincy role in front of you and you left the club to pursue this opportunity to go north for career, for work, and also football.
That's right, Hino. It was a tough decision, definitely a very hard decision, but took some time and thought. But I had relatives up here. My uncle's the site foreman at the current job that I'm doing, and I'm getting good insight into work through him and learning a lot underneath him. So that's been unreal. And then also coming up and having a look and realizing that they were going to have a season too, because they were better off. Obviously, I was just like, it'd be stupid not to come up here and get the best out of work, but also play a season of footy.
The decision like last year, I don't know what your discussions was with Pete Davey, the coach, because remember what happened last season. You had some practice match games, and I believe there was a practice match game against Dean Lathey was involved when he was coaching at Maribyrnong Park. So there were some practice match games, and they were held at in Ocean Grove, and then you played those practice match games. And I know that you probably deep down you were missing football, and it felt, even from the discussions when I found out that you'd moved to New South Wales, you were pretty keen to get that footy fix in what you were doing. Was it something that you were going to do despite the fact that there was a pandemic?
I was definitely looking into it, and I was just like, is the season going to go ahead there? Because I've got a massive passion for footy, obviously. I love footy, and I was just like, it sweetened the deal kind of thing, moving up here. The fact that footy was going ahead, I was just like, I've got to do it. It would have been tough not playing footy and having a season off. I would have struggled, definitely, for sure.
And that's really about the mental side, isn't it? Because one thing that we do talk about, regardless of whether it's other sports, is fitness and running. And someone like yourself, I even spoke to the club last year, and you had that little database where you would put in your times, and I don't know if it was a beep test, but I was always thinking, where's the captain, or is he in the top 10 or whatever? But you did pride yourself a lot on your fitness, and whether it was running up and down hills, or not so much running on the beach, but really proving your fitness to another level. And just seeing you on the track in training sessions, your fitness really got to a level that I'm not saying you were overly happy with, but you'd really pushed yourself.
I strive with my fitness in footy to be the best possible. Yeah, in saying that, I was probably slowing down a bit at Ocean Grove. There was the younger fellas. You had Logan Taylor, big Tommy Richardson, and all those boys that were becoming, they were moving up the ranks, and they were quite fit too. And, they created that challenge around the club, which was good, which pushed me even more, made me more determined to get fitter and do those extras outside of training. Coming up here, it's been the same situation. Really pride myself on my fitness, been trying to do runs outside of training, and same situation. There's a fair few blokes around the club up here that are quite fit, so they also create that challenge to compete with them. And it's a good kind of culture to have, I guess. Having blokes around the club pushing each other, it makes the club more successful. That's how I say it.
So did you have, when you moved up there, I don't know what month it was it April, May last year? I noticed here that your first game that you did play was on the 18th of July last year. You played 10 games for the North Shore Bombers. You kicked 2 goals, I believe, for the season. You're in the best a few times. You played teams like Manly and Inner West Magpies, and obviously one of the last games that you played was at the start of October. So the season stretched out that long against Sydney University. Was there a while before you could play your first senior game? I mean, what was sort of the ruling around quarantine by the time you got to New South Wales?
I was quite fortunate with the time that I decided to move. There was no quarantine or anything in regards to 14 days where you'd have to do a home quarantine or anything like that. So I hit it at a good time, which allowed me to just, jump straight into work and jump straight into pre-season with the boys. So it worked out perfect for me. And then in regards to, the competition, like definitely it was a lot more different to Victoria. I felt like the competition kind of dropped away a bit, but there was about 4 other sides that were quite competitive. And that was a good challenge coming up against those teams each week. But yeah, as I said, it kind of, the remainder of the teams in the competition, it kind of dropped away quite quickly.
So did you always have the blessing of your coaches in the sense that, whether it was Pete Davey, I know, someone like I always talk to the previous coaches you had about you and, you always strived with your fitness, and we'll talk about that shortly. But like I'm talking about your weights program and those sorts of things. But, you yourself, there would have still been a period of time, between when you arrived in Sydney and playing your first home game first game, I should say, on the 18th of July. So you had a fair bit of time to prepare and get the blessing of the coaches to let them know that you were going to go up north.
It's a difficult conversation, but Pete understanding that the season
Davey,
wasn't going. Yeah, Pete Davey, understanding the season wasn't going ahead. He gave my blessing in that regards. And again, having that conversation about staying up here for another year, that was probably more so difficult because obviously their season's going to go ahead this year, and King R, Pete Davey, all those coaches and staff around Ocean Grove, they were eager to get me back. I guess work and work kind of overrules footy at the end of the day. Like, having this opportunity up in Sydney, like quite difficult to kind of land a similar role down in Victoria without contacts, and having my uncle as the site foreman, it's just be silly to waste this opportunity up here, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that don't know you, I know you're into your sport and those other activities, but you, and believe it or not, I've got quite a few people close to me, best friends and people that I live with that have done work in construction, and you finished a university degree at Deakin. What was the name of that degree?
Just a Bachelor in Honours in Construction Management. Yeah,
construction management. So, yeah, the person that I actually live with has done the same sort of degree as well, with the construction management. So the opportunity to work in another state, that's impressive. And obviously on this podcast, we've actually spoken to coaches, whether it was a Mitch Herbison or Dom Gleeson from other BFL clubs. I mean, were you aware that from a football point of view that there were other players that had gone interstate, maybe from the Ballerine or the GFL, to play football last year because they knew that there was going to be a competition on, and transferring, I suppose, not only what they would do on the football field, but transferring their career experience and what they do outside of football and moving that interstate? I mean, did you have any chats with any of the people outside of Ocean Grove or people that had moved interstate for that same sort of reason?
I did hear it, and obviously it was on the socials and all that, of a number of players making that decision and making that move. Blokes like Maxie Sutton and Kobe Unnard, those younger boys from Ocean Grove, went and played up in Darwin, did a season up there. But I'm pretty sure that their season's obviously, not in the normal season of the BFL. So it kind of works in favour with them, but they can have a season up in the Northern Territory and then duck back and play a full season in Victoria too. Yeah, no, I didn't really have any discussion or conversations with any of those players around Geelong, the Geelong region and the Ballerine in regards to making that move. It was just kind of my own decision, and I just kind of went with it.
Now, Harry, I'm actually reading a Facebook post from August 1, 2019. You might remember the day. It said, this is on the Ocean Grove Football Netball Club site, as in their Facebook page. It said, tonight, Harry Walker was announced as our senior captain for the remainder of the year. He was presented with his zero jumper of this week's Towards Zero round. And you might have remembered that we got a picture there. And together we can work towards zero for future free of serious deaths and also injuries on our roads. And that's a serious message, and we want to reinforce out there that that zero campaign was about ensuring that people could do the right thing on the roads. And I'm sure with yourself, you probably had to do interstate trips and those sorts of things. So that's an important road message. But what was interesting about that game was that I think that was your first game as senior captain. And throughout the course of 2019, there was a bit of a thing called a captain's curse, meaning with an injury. And I think I may have taken a photo of you while you pulled up, and I'm not sure what the injury was, but it was a lower leg injury, and then I think you might have had a knee brace on for some period after that. Talk us through the events of that particular game against Port Arlington, how you copped an injury and then obviously got the captaincy.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit unlucky, that only being the only game, but I got to captain for Ocean Grove, unfortunately. But it was just a bit unlucky. There was a contest and I thought I could make it, and opposition player was sliding in and his shoulder went in straight to the side of my knee, and managed to fully rupture my medial. So that put me out of action for about 3 or 4 months, I think. So, I mean, it was probably lucky that it was towards the tail end of the normal season, but I was definitely spewing any sort of injury. Like, it's always kind of hard to swallow, especially for the last 2 or 3 rounds that I missed. Like, it was just hard watching it from the sidelines. So yeah, it's tough, but it was probably a blessing in disguise too. The season being a bit delayed this last year, just because the knee was still taking a bit of time to recover. But yeah, it's all good now.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've had your fair share of injuries, and also too, you going into last season. Well, obviously, if there was a season locally in the region in Victoria, if the season went ahead, you were going to be captain for that season. So I guess I get that there was an opportunity to present yourself to go to New South Wales, but it's not every day that you're an emerging young leader, but to be given that captaincy honour at your young age, you're in your early to mid 20s now. But how like juggling that? I mean, how do you enjoy that captaincy side outside of your football? And is that something that you were thinking about upon leaving Victoria to play in New South Wales, knowing that these captaincy opportunities might not arise all the time?
Yeah, no, it was definitely it was a massive decision. I was 100% going to be staying back in Victoria if the season was going ahead. That was it's very rare that you get that opportunity to be captain of your local side, and I thought that could lead to different pathways too, like foremen and project managers. It's like a matter of organising a group of people. It's kind of the same boat as a captain at a football club. You organise people and have a positive outlook to it all, and you support each other through it. And yeah, I just it was a tough decision. But yeah, at the end of the day, I had to do what was best for work, and who knows? Hopefully, I'm pushing hard at North Shore at the moment. To get a potential leadership role within that club would be unreal. So it's something that I could wish for, down the track, to lead, and that's how I love doing that. In general, like leading and trying to get the best out of everyone else, and that's what I aspire to do, to make a successful club, I guess.
Are you a leadership person in terms of the actions on the field, or your talk? I mean, I would say I've been aware of your football traits and your talents over a few years, but I think when you were thrusted into playing senior football, from my perspective, you're pretty quiet. Did you find that as soon as you grew into not so much just leadership role, but when you grew into playing more games at senior level, that you started to use your voice a bit more? Did you feel that in your younger days you were naturally shy, or maybe the image of that is that you were probably a little bit quiet with people that you didn't really know, or what was the perception there?
Yeah, I guess it's just comes down to confidence and just being comfortable within the group. Um, Being younger and coming through the ranks and not knowing many people, like it found it quite challenging and daunting, I guess. Trying to speak up and whatnot. But with time and being around, like back at Ocean Grove, I guess this was like, you know, being around the group and being comfortable with the people that I'm around. I've kind of warmed to talking a bit more, but yeah, talking's never really been a strength. Sometimes I struggle to string sentences together, but yeah, actions, I guess, too, is another form of leadership, and I guess that's your work rate, and just being a good role model at training and not, you know, not mucking around or anything like that. There's just like, I guess there's a number of ways that you can be a good leader, and you know, I strive to tick all those boxes really. Yeah, that's what I see as a good leader, and that's what I want to, you know, that's what I want to be.
What's sort of some of the challenges you've faced outside of your football during COVID? I mean, obviously, you know, in January, Sydney had a situation around like an outbreak, and you know, they pretty much locked down all the northern suburbs in a lot of ways, all the northern beaches in that sense. I mean, I know that you spent some time down here in Victoria catching up with family over the Christmas period, but even back into last year, like, I mean, from what I understand, New South Wales are very strong in terms of the contact tracing. So, you know, I could go to a cafe in the northern beaches or somewhere, and I'd imagine that you would do the sign in, or you know, you would get your phone and do the QR code. I mean, what were some of the things that, like, as you started to have time living up there, that you saw from a coronavirus perspective? Although at that time, you know, Victoria was in a much worse position in terms of a number of cases as opposed to New South Wales.
Yeah, I guess going to both states, I've kind of realised what they do and what they don't. And New South Wales are quite big on their QR codes. And you know, going into any venue, you'll have people at the front telling you that you need to sign in, to ensure that the tracing is to, like, you know, can be traced back to if someone was at the venue and had COVID, I guess. And then they've never been too full on with their mask. Up in Sydney, I think it was around January, they had mandatory masks at supermarkets and public transport, but that's kind of deteriorated over time. It's only public transport now. And then I guess opposed, you have Victoria, who quite firm on the idea of masks. So yeah, I mean, there's a bit of contrast between the two. Because going back to Victoria, like, you didn't have to particularly do any QR codes when going to venues. They were definitely a lot more lenient in that regards with the QR codes. So yeah, there are a couple of differences that I spotted between the two states.
What have you noticed pre-season training around the contact tracing, and you know, whether it's hand sanitizer or even last year, and you know, numbers of players in rooms and all that? Like, were there any restrictions playing with the North Shore Bombers that you weren't used to because of the pandemic?
Oh yeah, there was heaps of restrictions. They were definitely very firm on those restrictions, like the amount of people that you could have in the change rooms, sanitizing, the amount of people that were allowed on the field, waiting for teams to come off so teams can go on, at training, having to sanitize every time you go on the field, every time you go off. All the footballs had to be sanitized, and then training in small groups. Last year there was groups of 10, and you couldn't go onto the field until the group before you finished and was off the field. It was pretty full on. It was insane.
Did you get a bit of time to do other things? I mean, obviously you didn't have the start to the other AFL season. I know you're pretty active with some of the other pursuits you do, whether it's surfing or, you know, running and those sorts of things. But were there other things that, like, you know, the start of the AFL Barwon season back in Victoria last year didn't go ahead, so I think you were still here at that time. I mean, you're obviously weighing up going to New South Wales, but even when you went to New South Wales and made the switch, I mean, have there been things that you've been able to do that you would normally not otherwise do in your life?
Is that in regards to before I moved?
Yeah, before you moved, and then when you were up there, like, you know, because what I learnt was that, you know, I might be doing like a word puzzle on on an iPhone, or I might be listening to other podcasts, or I might be, going through some things at home where you're going through history records or whatever, and you're doing a bit of a declutter. Do you get what I mean? Or, you might be doing some stair running. I mean, were there things that you would think, oh, geez, I didn't realize I could do this during this period, and I had a little bit more time during COVID-19?
Yeah. Well, back when we had that 2-month period off around March period, I was doing some unusual stuff with like do a bit of drawing and stenciling, and copped a bit of shit for that. But I don't know, a bit artsy, I guess. Always kind of had that kind of background growing up. And another thing was probably getting into shares a little bit too. That's another little thing that I've grown a bit of interest in, and just talking with people and getting people's advice. It's actually quite interesting when you look into it.
So Harry Walker, the property tycoon, could well have a share in one of the casinos up in Sydney.
It's quite interesting. You wouldn't pick it, but it's been a bit of fun.
Well, I think that's good for you. I mean, obviously, if you're at that age where you're sort of looking to invest in something, even before you buy property, or you're in that pathway to do that, you're investing with your money, and you're understanding some of the risks associated that go with that. So that's interesting to hear that, you had all these other things outside the sport aspect where you could do those things. And then obviously what you're doing in construction, and just tell us a little bit about your role with your construction job, and some of the daily tasks that you'd be doing around COVID.
It's basically, it is a labouring role, but my uncle's been quite good with getting me involved in I guess just understanding and interpreting plans, and so I've got my head across what's kind of happening, I guess, in regards to when steel fixers, form workers come in, and all sorts of subcontractors. I can kind of be across it and understand like what their tasks are, what they're trying to achieve, and it's definitely been super insightful. Having that 4-year university degree and understanding I learned that in my second year of university, and now like it's been put into action on site. Like I never had that luxury of any internships or work experience at university, so it was quite difficult to comprehend, and having that luxury now, it's just been unreal. It's been super insightful, and I reckon it will just hold me in good stead going forward when I'm going for new other jobs down the track. It's just going to hold me in good stead. That's how I say it. But then I have my days where I'm on a shovel, and it's me and the shovel and the wheelbarrow, and that's all part of labour too. So the good comes with the bad, I guess.
Yeah, and then you've obviously got the storm weather up in Sydney as well. I know when I've spent a bit of time up in Sydney, it always rains a bit harder up there. In fact, the last trip I was up there, it was just constant rain. I was like, oh, geez, I picked the wrong time to go in October. But look, it's great that you've learnt that, and you're learning different skills in another state, and you've got some family, and then obviously you can come back. But one thing that always resonates with you, and something that I always speak to about previous coaches, is that you always put a lot of emphasis on building strength, and I guess working out in the gym over the pre-season. I mean, was that something that you naturally always wanted to do, or was it part of was it additional outside of football with maybe bowling and cricket or construction? I mean, you had a lot of motivation to spend a bit of time in pre-season in the gym. What was the focus there?
It was probably more so coming up, being young when I first started playing senior footy, and probably just wanting to become stronger and being able to compete with those bigger bodies. That was probably the biggest thing that I saw. Unfortunately, I've lost a bit of that motivation to go to the gym since being up in Sydney, but I guess pushing wheelbarrows around and being on a shovel all day kind of makes up for that. But yeah, no, like, it's just more so just so, I'm able to compete with those bigger bodies, I guess, in senior footy, and, not being able to get thrown off easily. Like, it's just, having that edge over my opponent, I guess. And that's how I see it. That's, when I was wanting to get into the gym, that's what I was working towards. So that's what I want to be as a footballer, having that edge over my opponent, that's how I see it for sure.
One of the first games that you ever debuted for Ocean Grove, I was behind the goals. I believe it was at Newcombe one day, and Wayne Walsh, who was the coach at the time, he's obviously the father of Sam Walsh that plays at Carlton. He must have realised who I was sort of behind the goals with, and he goes, "Oh, who was that bloke you're talking to?" And he goes, "Oh," I said, "Oh, that was Charlie, your dad, Charlie Walker." And he goes, "Oh, is he not a bad bloke and all that?" And I said, "Oh, I think he rides the emotion a bit on Harry's game and all that sort of stuff." And having a little bit of banter here. The old man's been a great support for your, I suppose, sporting career, particularly football, and having faced you guys in the nets in cricket as well. He rides and breathes your sporting attributes, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, being from New South Wales and growing up playing rugby, you would have never thought that he'd be down in Victoria watching his son play AFL, I guess. So he's made a massive change in codes. So, but yeah, no, he's loved transitioning into footy. He loves his Geelong Cats, and he's really good amongst it all. And it's good to have that support. Every time I used to run out at Ocean Grove, I'd have mum and dad down at the games watching and cheering on. Like, it was always a bit of fun. He does ride it, but yeah, he loves it. And it's just, he's been there since Auskick kind of thing. He's been, he used to drive me to all my junior games, and yeah, he's an absolute legend. So yeah, loved having him down and around the club.
And are you a Victorian at heart or New South Welshman now, Harry? I mean, where do your allegiances lie?
Oh, definitely still Victorian based. Can't spend 20 years in Victoria and just give them the flick, Like, I've only been up here for a year. Still a Victorian at heart.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. With your father's, I suppose, background in New South Wales and changing sort of codes and learning a bit about, your family history, particularly around that, New South Wales, Victoria area. And I guess I wanted to thank you for being on the podcast today. This has been episode 46 of the Stoned Heen View. We're still pretty much, this is, I think, our last episode before summer, actually, at the moment. So, yeah, the summer series is pretty much finishing today, Harry. And it's been a great delight to have you on the podcast. And you won't be playing cricket anytime. You won't be playing cricket anytime soon, will you? You don't want to get an injury before the footy season, do you?
No, I can't be breaking ankles again. So yeah, probably steer clear from cricket. But yeah, thanks heaps for having me, Hino. Thanks for having me on board. It's been unreal. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thanks for getting on board, and good luck to your North Shore Bombers this year. So, well, good stuff. 2021 is not far away from starting with your new season. So again, thanks for joining us on the Stoned Heen View.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks. Cheers, Hino.
Good stuff. You can get in contact if you have a guest in mind from sport. You can check out the Stoned Heen View on Facebook and the Stoned Heen View on Instagram, where this episode will be going. We're also available on Apple Podcasts. We'll be putting up the audio firstly before we put up the video. Also Spotify, and we're also on Podbean, which is a launching platform. So if you want to write us a review or even sponsor us, your sports club, you can do that. So jump on Apple Podcasts. Let us know what you're thinking about the podcast. We've also got a YouTube channel and a Twitter account called @Stoned Heen View, which is @Stoned Heen View. Until next time, this has been episode 46. It's been a great delight to have Harry Walker on from the North Shore Bombers and the former Ocean Grove Football Netball Club senior captain. We are now coming up to our autumn part of the season for our next episode, and it will be episode 47. So thanks to Harry Walker and for allowing to come on for this time. And we'll see you soon on the Stoned Heen View podcast, and it's bye for now. Thank you.